Hello friends, it's Funky Playbrothers, and today I'm reading Tiger Rock, or Five Nights at Freddy's Tales from the Pizzaplex, number 7, Tiger Rock, by Scott Cawthon, Kelly Parra, and Adrian Wagger. Last time we left off, Kay was being hunted by Tiger Rock Owl. Kay forced himself to pay attention to his friends. He needed to forget about that stupid owl and stop looking for things that weren't there. Todd, who clutched the tiny scrap of white paper that held the first clue, frowned at it. "What does 'hey, you don't want to bail on this one' mean?" he asked. Kay had no idea, and his mind was too fuzzy to try to figure it out. He shook his head and waited for Asher to come up with something. Asher chewed his full lower lip for several seconds. He muttered to himself under his breath, then he snapped his fingers. "It's old man Gruber's place," he said. "Huh?" Todd said. He unwrapped one of the caramel candies he often had stuffed in his pockets. He popped it in his mouth and held another couple of wrapped ones. "Want some?" he said around the candy in his mouth. Asher and Kay shook their heads. "Old man Gruber doesn't bale his hay," Asher explained. "You know how he just puts it in the mounds in his fields." Todd nods. Then he shook his head. "How do you know the clue's supposed to take us to old man Gruber's place? This time of year, a lot of hay isn't baled yet. The clue could mean any of a dozen farms." "Too random," Asher said. "Kay's dad wouldn't send us to every farm with unbayed hay. Old man Gruber is known for his unbayed hay." "I think you're assuming too much," Todd said. "And you know what they say about assuming? You're assuming I care what you think," Asher said. "Hey," Todd said. "Exactly," Asher said. Kay wasn't in the mood for Todd and Asher's bickering. "Come on," he said. "Let's go see what we find at old man Gruber's place. He has that little stand next to the road where his daughter used to sell flowers. That'd be a good place to hide another clue." Todd chewed his caramel with his mouth open and thought about it. He shrugged and nodded. "Why not?" Asher rolled his eyes, and all three boys went for their bikes, which leaned against the slender porch railing that ran along the front of Kay's family's house. They all put their feet on their pedals and coasted down the driveway out to the street. Old man Gruber's farm was only a couple miles from Kay's house. It was a straight shot down the street and then onto one of the back roads that crisscrossed the farms that surrounded the town. As they rode their bikes over, Kay lagged even farther behind than usual. His mind was not even remotely on the quest. His focus wasn't on pedaling his bike. He wasn't noticing much about the houses and yards they were passing. He was back to thinking about Tiger Rock and the owl. Kay remembered Kay remained lost in his thoughts until they started to pass the last house at the end of the street before turning onto the road leading to old man Gruber's place. This house belonged to Mrs. Nelson, a widow who liked to be sure everyone knew she was proud of her thick green lawn, her prize-winning flower beds, and her perfect white picket fence. Kay was pedaling past the fence when he spotted something crouching near one of the posts. He slowed his bike, afraid he was seeing the metal owl again. When Kay dropped his speed, though, he realized that the lump at the base of the fence board wasn't an owl. It was a cat. But it wasn't a real cat. Kay's feet came off the pedal, which whipped around and smacked his calves. He jerked the handlebars as he started to stare at the cat, and his bike careened off the road. Only just aware that he was losing control of the bike, Kay kept his gaze on the cat. He couldn't tell what it was made of. The same detail metal he'd seen on the future Pizzaplex animatronics and on the owl in his backyard. As Kay gaped at the cat, it turned its head like the owl and like Tiger Rock. The cat had one green eye and one blue eye. Kay's breath caught in his throat, and his left hand lost its grip on the handlebar. So only Kay's right hand squeezed the brake handle when he involuntarily clutched at it. Kay's front wheel locked up and the bike flipped, sending Kay head over heels into the picket fence. Kay's left arm shot between two of the fence's boards, and his bike came down on top of him. Kay's head grazed the fence's boards, and his knees skinned the concrete in front of the fence. Kay got a noseful of the strong fertilizer Mrs. Nelson used. Stunned, Kay lay still for several seconds. "Whoa," Todd's voice rang out. "Are you okay?" Kay closed his eyes. He did this partly because of the pain in his head, his arm, and his knees, but mostly he was closing his eyes because he knew he'd landed near the cat, and he didn't want to see it. Kay heard the sounds of bike wheels speeding over concrete. Then he heard the squeak of Todd's brake. After that came the clatter of bikes hitting the ground. Kay opened his eyes and his friends reached him. Todd leaned over and grabbed Kay's right hand. He tried to hoist Kay up from the ground. A sharp pain shot through Kay's arm. He cried out. The pain worsened as Todd tried even harder to lever Kay up from the ground. "Ow," Kay screeched. Todd kept pulling. "Stop," Kay yelled. "Stop it, that hurts." "Sorry," Todd said, panting. He dropped Kay's right hand. His arms stuck between the fence boards. Asher told Todd as he shifted Kay's bike away from him. You need to work his arm free carefully." Todd dropped to his knees next to Kay's trapped arm. Kay felt the bike's weight come off his body, and before Todd could help, Kay turned so he could pull his own arm out from between the boards. Kay's right shoulder was still sore from the wrenching it had gotten the night before. Now Kay's left arm was screaming as loud as his right arm had when it had gotten caught in the window. "Ow," Kay said again. He gingerly rotated his arm and rubbed his shoulder. "What happened?" Todd asked. "We were up ahead. I didn't see. We were up ahead. I didn't see." Kay wasn't about to describe what happened. "It was a cat," he said vaguely. Todd nodded. "Figures. Cats are menaces." "They are not," Asher said. "Cats are great." "Whatever," Todd said. "Everyone knows dogs are better than cats." "Dogs are stupid suck-ups," Asher said. "Cats are independent." Todd had some comeback for that, but Kay turned him out as he carefully got to his feet. His friends continued their cat versus dogs argument, one that Kay had heard many times before. Todd had a Dachshund, and Asher's family had two cats. Kay ignored them and bent over to check his bike. It seemed to be okay. "I'm going to head back home," Kay said, interrupting Todd's rant. Asher looked at Kay. "Hey, that's a good idea. You've got a bump on your head there and your knees are bleeding." Asher started to turn his bike to go with Kay. Kay shook his head. "You guys don't need to come back with me," Kay said. "Go and finish the quest." "You sure?" Asher asked. Kay nodded. He could feel tears welling, and he didn't want his friends to see them. He turned away from them. "I'm sure. Go on and find the prize." Kay quickly wiped his eyes. He turned back to face his friends. Asher and Todd exchanged a look. Then they shrugged. "If you say so," Asher said. Asher and Todd got on their bikes and headed down the street. Kay watched them go. Then he started walking his bike home. As he went, his arm continued to throb, and his mind continued to replay the image of the one green eye and one blue eye. On Monday, just before noon, Kay and his friends got out of English class and set off to get their lunch. Kay wasn't really hungry, but he was happy to be out of the classroom. That crowded room with his desk crammed too close together. He had felt like it was pressing in around him during the whole class. He tried to ignore that feeling, so instead he spent most of the English class thinking about Tiger Rock and the metal owl and cat. Now that class was over, he realized he really had no memory of anything his teacher had said. He figured Todd would fill him in later. Todd was used to telling Kay what he had missed when Kay's mind wandered off. Now Kay and his friends were being bummed along by a crowd of kids, all trying to get to the cafeteria to be the first in line. Kay was still lost in his thoughts. He was wondering if there was some ritual that he could find, something that would get the visions he was having, that would get the vision, something that would get the visions he was having, because they had to be visions of his system, out of his system. Although consumed by his metal chatter, Kay could hear Todd and Asher talking as the three boys approached the top of the escalator. Heading to the main floor of the old brick building yet again, his friends were arguing. It's not a stupid argument, Asher said just before they stepped onto the escalator. And that's where we'll stop for today. Next time, tune in for the next part, where we'll find out if Kay's having visions or if Tiger Rock followed him home and is mimicking all of these animals. So, friends, thanks for listening. Like, comment, subscribe, hit the notification bell. Follow us on Twitter at the Funky Play Bros. Follow us on Instagram and TikTok at the Funky Play Brothers. Support our vlog at cashapp, the $sign Funky Play Brothers, so we can have more unboxings, more taste tests, more adventures, more monies, and for support. Thank you for watching. Bye!